Why was a janitor carrying a rifle case through the Pentagon's sterile corridors? Lieutenant James slowed his stride, the cadence of his polished boots echoing against marble, sharp and deliberate. He had been raised to walk with confidence, the kind drilled into him at West Point and reinforced by the weight of family legacy. He thought he knew how to read a battlefield, even if this one was only a hallway under fluorescent light. Yet something about the old woman ahead of him disrupted the neat lines of his world. She was pushing a maintenance cart. Uniform faded, hair tied back in a bun streaked with gray. Invisible, the way people who clean up after others so often are. But it wasn't her that pulled his attention. It was the battered rifle case strapped to the side of her cart. Black, dented, out of place in a building that hummed with polished ceremony and classified authority. Smirked, a relic, he thought. An antique someone should have left in a museum. He let his voice carry the casual arrogance of a newly pinned lieutenant, sharp with confidence but soft with ignorance. "That's quite the antique you've got there, ma'am," he said, stepping closer. "Looks like it's survived Desert Storm, maybe a few conflicts after that. Planning to donate that piece of history to the—" The woman's hand paused on the cart. She looked up at him, and for a fleeting instant her eyes revealed something he couldn't name. It wasn't weariness. It wasn't surprise. It was precision. Cold, clear, calculating precision. "It serves its purpose," she said simply. Her voice rasped, worn by years and perhaps by cigarettes. Her badge read Wilson. Nothing special. Just another worker who kept the Pentagon running while men like him trained for history. But the case drew him in. He bent down, tracing fingers over its scars. "Mind if I take a look? I'm heading to Afghanistan in a few weeks. Maybe this old-timer saw some action back in the day." He didn't wait for permission. His hand rotated the case. His grin faded. His blood cooled. Burned into the surface, seared with unmistakable military precision, were words that stopped him mid-breath. Operation Sandstorm, 2875 meters. One shot, zero collateral. Froze, the number struck him like a blow. 2,875 meters, nearly 3 kilometers. It was more than impossible. It was legend. The longest confirmed sniper kill he knew of, the record they whispered about at West Point, had been 2,500 meters. A Canadian in Afghanistan. And even that was considered miraculous, the kind of shot ballistics barely allowed. But 2,875, that wasn't just skill. That was rewriting physics. Earth's rotation, shifting wind, humidity, mirage, every law of nature stacked against it. A bullet flying for nearly 6 seconds through currents and chaos and still finding its mark. "Where did you get this?" whispered. The arrogance had drained from his voice, leaving something. Wilson slid the case back with an economy of motion that revealed ownership, not borrowed familiarity. She met his eyes, and for the first time he noticed her stance. Balanced, centered. Her gaze swept the corridor not as a janitor might, but as a soldier would, assessing exits, threats, angles. The calluses on her hands weren't from mops. "I told you," she said evenly. "It serves its purpose." Step back, pulse quickening. He felt the corridor tighten, the building itself waiting. He searched for words, but all he managed was a whisper carried on disbelief. The ghost of the Badlands. He had heard the myth. A sniper in Afghanistan, a shadow in the mountains, striking at distances no weapon should allow. Enemy fighters believed they were hunted by something not human, a ghost. The military called it propaganda. He had believed it, until now. Wilson's eyes narrowed just slightly, enough to let him know the myth was standing right in front of him. "Lieutenant," she said. Her voice knew his name, though he hadn't offered it. "You've got a career ahead of you. That career will be a lot longer if you learn to recognize when you've stumbled onto something above your clearance." She pushed her cart forward, the rifle case now turned deliberately to hide its inscription. Stood frozen, his breath shallow, as the sound of her wheels faded into the endless corridors of power. That night in his officer's quarters, the image of her eyes would not leave him. He turned his grandfather's silver dollar in his hand, the talisman carried by men who had stormed Normandy, who had served with honor. He had grown up believing in legends. Now one walked disguised in janitor's blue. And he wondered, if she was the ghost, what had that impossible shot cost her? At Fort couldn't let it go. He searched military databases deep into the night. No Wilson on record, no clearance files, no background checks. It was as if she didn't exist. But that inscription, that distance, haunted him. He replayed it in his mind as if testing its truth against gravity itself. The M82. No, it maxed out at 1,800 meters. The Marine Corps M40, effective to maybe 1,000. At 2,875, a bullet would be in the air long enough to drift like a feather on shifting winds. Yet someone had done it. The ping of his terminal pulled him back. Updated deployment orders. Afghanistan, Task Force Sierra, a specialized unit. Eastern Mountains, the very ground where the ghost had been whispered about. Coincidence? His chest tightened. His father's words echoed from memory, spoken over whiskey after his West Point graduation. There are stories, James, shots that physics. Men swore they saw it. Brass called it propaganda. But the ones who were there, they knew better. Gripped the silver dollar, pressing its edges into his palm. He told himself he would find her again. The next morning he waited in the Pentagon's East Corridor. 600 hours. Maintenance staff beginning their rounds. He didn't know what he wanted, proof, maybe, or understanding. And then she appeared, pushing her cart. The same case strapped to the side. Same measured movements, same invisible mask. But this time he saw more. How she checked sight lines before entering each space. How her eyes flicked to cameras. How her body moved with readiness disguised as routine. When a man in a suit erupted at the security checkpoint, hand moving toward his jacket in a way every soldier recognizes, braced. But Wilson was faster. Cart abandoned, steps precise. Wrist strike, shoulder pressure, leg sweep. The man was down before guards even reacted. Wilson stepped back into the background as if she had never been there. Throat dried, he knew that sequence. Force recon, SEALs, specialized combat training, not janitorial school. He followed her, he couldn't stop himself. When she emerged from a closet minutes later, he stepped close, voice low. That was a force recon takedown, developed early 2000s, not something you find in a mop bucket. Wilson's gaze flicked to him, then to the cameras, then back. Her face remained unreadable. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do, said. His voice trembled not with arrogance now, but with need. Just like you know what 2,875 meters means, the ghost of the Badlands. For the first time, her jaw tightened. You're being reassigned, she said quietly. Afghanistan, Task Force Sierra, high-value targets, same mountains, same corridors of wind and stone. Heart stuttered, he hadn't told her, no one had, yet she knew. Who are you? He whispered. She studied him for a long moment. Her eyes carried weight, depth, a history that threatened to crush him. I'm nobody. And if you're smart, you'll forget you ever saw me. Some stories aren't meant to be told, but she glanced at her watch. East parking structure, level 3, 1,700 hours. Come alone if you want to hear the kind of story that changes you. And then she was gone, wheels rolling, blending back into invisibility. Stood alone, pulse hammering, notebook burning in his pocket, feeling the first chill of a truth larger than any mission briefing. He had chased a ghost, and the ghost had answered. Why did she trust him enough to offer a meeting? The thought pressed on all day through briefings, through paperwork, through the hollow chatter of fellow officers who saw nothing beneath the Pentagon's polished surface. He could barely hear them. His mind was already in the East parking structure, level 3, 1,700 hours. When the time came, he arrived early. Instinct. He scanned angles, exits, blind corners. A lifetime of training collided with a lifetime of stories, his father's whispers, his uncle's nods, the kind of legends cadets laughed about but secretly carried like scripture. A black sedan slid into place. Government plates. The passenger window lowered, not to reveal Wilson, but a man recognized instantly. Colonel Richard Blackwood. The name alone had weight. Delta Force. Cold War exploits taught at West Point. A man whose history read like classified scripture. "Get in, Lieutenant," Blackwood said, voice graveled as if carved from stone. Obeyed. The car moved with quiet authority onto the highway, headlights carving through dusk. Silence stretched. Stole a glance. Blackwood's face was weathered, carved by decades of decisions men half his age could never understand. "I was expecting Wilson," said. Blackwood's hands gripped the wheel. "She sent me. Thought it better you hear certain truths at a distance." "Swallowed, so you know who she is." "I know enough." Blackwood's gaze didn't leave the road. "Including the case you touched, the inscription, Operation Sandstorm, 2,875 meters. Felt his throat tighten. "Impossible, sir. No rifle could." And yet, Blackwood interrupted, someone did. The Washington Monument gleamed faintly in the distance. Blackwood guided the car toward a quiet riverside park, killing the engine beneath a stand of trees. "What do you know about the ghost of the Badlands?" he asked. Hesitated. "Rumors. A sniper in eastern Afghanistan, impossible shots. Some say it was propaganda, psychological warfare." "That's the line," Blackwood said flatly. "But you saw the evidence, and very few have." He turned, eyes hard. "What I'm about to tell you never leaves this car. Understood?" "Yes, sir." "Operation Sandstorm," Blackwood began, "was real. 2005. High-value target, mastermind behind embassy bombings, moving through the mountains with a network that could kill thousands. Capture was impossible. Direct assault suicidal. The only option was elimination." Mind spun, but the distance. "Exactly," Blackwood said. 3 kilometers. No conventional rifle could guarantee it. But they brought in someone unconventional. Someone whose skill was beyond metrics. Chest pounded, the ghost. "One of the names," Blackwood said. "Never official, just whispers, but the shot was taken. Perfect. Dead instantly. His network collapsed. Hundreds of lives spared." Leaned back, "And the sniper?" Blackwood's expression darkened. "That's the turn, Lieutenant. The mission succeeded, but the shooter didn't." He let the silence hang. Psychological evaluation revealed something beyond PTSD. Moral injury. The shot broke her. Not the act of pulling the trigger, but what came after. Families in the compound. Civilians. Images no debriefing could erase. The cost wasn't tactical. It was human. Voice was hushed. "They erased her." Blackwood studied him. "What makes you so sure the ghost was a woman?" Met his eyes, "Because I've seen her." The silence that followed was louder than any admission. "Her name isn't in any system you'll ever access," Blackwood said at last. "Her service record is buried deeper than mine. She was given a choice, keep serving and destroy what remained of her soul or disappear. She chose disappearance. Wilson, Pentagon janitor, close enough to watch the world she once protected, far enough to survive." Stared at the dash. The weight of it settled on him. "Why tell me this?" he asked. "If it's so classified, why confirm it?" Blackwood's jaw tightened. "Because your reassignment to Task Force Sierra is no coincidence. There are elements in command who want her methods revived, expanded. They call it Project. They're searching for officers like you." Felt the chill crawl up his spine. "They want to recreate her," Blackwood continued. "A perfect weapon. Someone who won't hesitate to make shots beyond distance, beyond morality. Someone who doesn't ask whether a target should be taken, only whether it can." Stomach turned. "So they're testing me." "They're watching you," Blackwood said. Evaluating, recognized it. That's why she risked breaking cover. She asked me to tell you one thing. Blackwood leaned closer, voice low, carrying the weight of years. The shot that makes you a legend might be the one that destroys who you are. Choose carefully which targets you acquire. The words sank deep, heavy as lead. The car moved again back toward the Pentagon, headlights tracing the night. Sat silent, the silver dollar in his palm, shadow in his mind. The ghost wasn't dead, she was here, watching, warning. And now, he was inside the same machinery that had broken her. 2 days later, he saw her again. She appeared in his doorway like a shadow stepping into light. Same faded uniform, same cart pusher's disguise, but her eyes sharper now, as if she had chosen to drop part of the act. "Walk with me," she said. No introduction, no preamble, just command. He followed, through corridors, stairwells, past cameras she noted with each step. Finally, they emerged onto a balcony overlooking the Pentagon's courtyard, quiet, unwatched. "Blackwood told you," she said. "It wasn't a question." "Enough," admitted. "Sandstorm you, but not everything." Her gaze drifted over the courtyard. "They've been building it since then. Project. A program designed to find and train snipers who can do what I did. Not just distance, but obedience. People willing to take any shot, no matter who or what the target is." "That's not how we fight," said sharply. Wilson's laugh was brittle. "That's how we fight in the shadows, Lieutenant, where rules don't reach, where the mission is cleaner on paper if no one asks questions." She turned, and for the first time he saw the soldier beneath the disguise. Shoulders squared, eyes lined not with age but with weight. "They see something in you," she said. "The same thing they saw in me, potential. You'll be tested in Afghanistan, distance, judgment, compartmentalization. They'll push until they know if you break." From her pocket she pulled a worn notebook, small leather creased by years. She placed it in his hands. "Coordinates," she said, "places you might be ordered to shoot. Before you take those shots, check this list. Some aren't what they seem." Turned the notebook over, fingers trembling. "Why are you warning me? Why risk your cover?" Her eyes met his, and he saw something he hadn't expected: sorrow. "Because I was you once," she said quietly. "Young, ambitious, believing service meant sacrifice, not betrayal. I didn't know the cost until I paid it." Her voice faltered just slightly. "Don't let them turn you into me." She checked her watch. "You deploy in 10 days, there's someone else you need to watch. Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell. Sniper, they're grooming her too. She doesn't see it yet. Help her, or at least warn her." Felt the weight of her words, the notebook heavy in his hand. "The shot," he whispered. 2,875 meters. Was it really possible?" Wilson turned to leave, her back rigid, her disguise resuming like armor. At the door she paused, her voice carrying the weight of every ghost she carried. "Possible, Lieutenant. Yes. Worth it, no." She looked over her shoulder, her eyes hollowed by memory. "The best sniper isn't the one who makes the shot no one else can. It's the one who knows which shots should never be taken." And then she was gone, swallowed again by the Pentagon's endless corridors, leaving with a notebook, a warning, and a shadow he could never unsee. Why did the mountains feel older than war itself? The Hindu Kush rose jagged and merciless against the Afghan sky. Peaks cut into the horizon, shadows stretching long over valleys that had swallowed empires. Lay prone on a rocky outcropping 9,000 feet up, the air thin, his lungs dragging for rhythm. Through the scope of his M107, the world narrowed to crosshairs and distance. Task Force Sierra, his new assignment. 3 weeks in country, and already the whispers of the ghost had followed him into these mountains. "Wind shift 3 o'clock, 8 knots, said Staff Sergeant David Monroe, his spotter. Calm, precise, his voice anchored in the ritual of calculation. Adjusted, breathing steady. He had trained for this. The target was a compound across the valley, a scar in the earth infamous for blood. They called it the Valley of Death. British, Soviets, Americans, it had taken them all. And now, through glass and steel, finger curved against a trigger. Movement, two figures stepping into daylight, scarves wrapped, rifles slung. Monroe confirmed one, a facilitator, the man behind IED networks that had torn soldiers and civilians apart. Positive ID, 85% confidence, Monroe said. Target moving east side, casual pace. Exhaled the roared. The man dropped instantly, center mass, before his companion scrambled into cover. Clean, surgical, no collateral. Target down, Monroe said. His voice never rose above neutral. Blinked, the image burning itself behind his eyes. The adrenaline ebbed, replaced by that quiet ache that always followed the unspoken truth of what a sniper's shot meant. The man had never heard the round, never known death was watching him from a mile away. As broke down his position, packing each piece of gear with methodical calm, his thoughts turned to Wilson. 2,875 meters. The number haunted him. If this 1,600-meter shot demanded perfect conditions, years of training, and the best equipment in the world, then what had it cost her to push nearly double? And why had it broken her? Forward Operating Base Chapman was a fortress of dust and wire beneath the shadow of mountains. Inside, the war hummed briefings, maps, satellite feeds. Stepped into the briefing room where Task Force Sierra gathered. Captain Thomas Walker stood at the front, weathered, a man who carried deployments etched into the lines of his face. His voice rasped like gravel as he addressed them. Good work yesterday, Walker said. Elimination disrupts the Eastern Corridor, buys us time. Half listened, his gaze caught on the woman across the table. Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell. She was younger than he expected, 29, but her eyes sharp, unwavering. She carried herself with the stillness of a rifle barrel. Her reputation had preceded her, 8 confirmed high-value eliminations in 4 months. Now 9, she would later tell him. As the briefing ended, found himself walking beside her toward the range. That was clean work, she said, breaking the silence. 1,600 meters, variable winds, not many could do it their first month out. He nodded, appreciate it, though I hear you've done better. Her lips curved faintly. 9 now, 1 at 1,700 3 days ago. Wind shifts, 6-hour wait, had to compensate for a 20-degree temperature drop. Her tone carried no pride, just fact, precision. He heard in her voice what he feared, not just skill but hunger, the same hunger had warned him about. You're chasing's record, he said. Her brow rose, you know. Every sniper does, answered. White Feather, Vietnam, 2,500-yard shot with a modified machine gun. She nodded. It's not just the numbers, it's his innovation, his refusal to accept limits. As they set up on the range, tested her with a whisper. You ever hear of the ghost of the Badlands? Mitchell froze, barely but enough. Most people say it was ops, she said cautiously. Something to scare the Taliban. What do you think? Asked. She looked at him, eyes sharper than her scope. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, but sometimes evidence exists where no one wants it written down. She turned back to her rifle, but she had said it. She knew more than she admitted. And felt it, project circling both of them. 2 nights later, sleep evaded him. He found himself in the secure comms center combing classified databases, searching for a word, sandstorm. Nothing, redacted walls blocked him, but coordinates yielded fragments. An after-action report, Eastern Afghanistan, June 2005. Target eliminated at extreme standoff distance. Notes about an Asset M recommendation, immediate extraction. It was her, Wilson, her shot. But buried deeper was something colder, a medical assessment, moral injury, psychological trauma not from fear, but from crossing a line she could not uncross, words clinical but meaning human. Subject repeatedly expresses concern about cross-line targets of convenience versus legitimate objectives. Closed the file slowly. He could almost see her 2005 lying in stone and silence for 72 hours, waiting. He could imagine the scope image of falling, the echo of families rushing to his body, and her voice on the radio, calm but breaking. "This was my last shot." A sound drew him back. Major Allen Roberts stood in the room, eyes on him. "Finding everything you need, Lieutenant?" Roberts asked casually, too casually. Straightened, "Just reviewing past ops, sir." Roberts smiled thinly. "Most officers stick to current intel. Historical deep dives are unusual." He let the silence test before continuing. "Be careful where you dig. Some operations rewrote the rules. Some aren't meant to be touched." And then he walked away, leaving cold, the silver dollar pressing into his palm. The professor. That was for their next target, a bomb maker, engineer. His devices had already killed 16 coalition soldiers. Briefing maps lit the wall, a compound nestled in a narrow valley. The only vantage point, a ridge nearly 1,750 meters away, mirage effects, variable wind, almost unworkable. Captain Walker's eyes landed on Mitchell. "Your primary shooter, spotter, secondary if needed." Glanced at her. She studied the terrain with a quiet hunger, the kind that pushed snipers into legend, the kind that had pushed Wilson into silence. That night in his quarters, opened Wilson's notebook, coordinates inked in faded strokes. His breath caught. One set matched their mission's overwatch point almost exactly. She had known. The insertion was silent. Drop night vision trek across jagged ground. By dawn, they were in position. The valley below stirred, wind tunneled, mirage shimmered. Mitchell lay behind her custom AXMC, chambered in .338 Magnum, tracked with his scope, feeding data. Wind 12 knots, variable, temperature 18 degrees at our position, 2 to 3 warmer in the valley, humidity 30%. She adjusted, calm, patient, hours bled away. Then movement. A white rolled into the compound, 3 men, 2 with rifles, 1 tall, thin, glasses, beard trimmed. The professor confirmed. Mitchell's breathing slowed, finger poised. But gut twisted. The man's mannerisms too confident, too obeyed. Not a bomb maker hiding behind guards, something else, a detail out of place. He hesitated. "Send it when ready," Mitchell whispered. He almost said wait, almost, but the mission parameters were clear. Positive ID, target confirmed. "Send it," he said. Her rifle cracked. The professor fell instantly, lifeless before he hit the ground. "Target down," said into comms, though the words tasted like ash. The extraction was smooth, but as they trekked, noticed Mitchell's silence. Her usual post-mission calm was gone, replaced by a haunted quiet. Finally she spoke. "Did you see his face?" she asked flatly. "I saw the impact." "He looked surprised," she said. "Not afraid, not angry, just surprised, like he couldn't believe it was happening." Glanced at her. Her eyes were fixed ahead, but her voice carried a tremor beneath its calm. "It was a clean shot," he offered. Her laugh was bitter. "Is that what they teach you? That killing a man from a mile away is just a clean shot?" Stayed silent. By the time the helicopter lifted them out, he knew. Sarah Mitchell had taken her first step into the same shadow that had consumed Wilson. Why didn't her victory feel like one? That night the base celebrated. Command praised the mission. 1 shot, 1 life, dozens spared from IEDs that would never be built. Commendations were drafted before the dust had even settled. But Sarah Mitchell didn't join the celebration. Found her on the observation deck, the Afghan mountains black silhouettes against a star-crushed sky. She leaned against the railing, arms rigid, eyes fixed on peaks that had outlived empires. "Trouble sleeping?" asked softly, stepping beside her. She didn't turn, just thinking. About the shot. Her jaw tightened. 1750, my personal best, should feel like an achievement. A pause, her voice dropped. It doesn't. Said nothing at first. He knew better than to fill silence meant for confession. Finally she whispered, I keep seeing his face, not afraid, not angry, just surprised. She closed her eyes briefly. It's not the first face. There are 9 others, but now they're all there, watching me when I close my eyes. Exhaled slowly. He had read the word for it, moral injury, not fear, not trauma from threat, trauma from action, from what your own hands, steady, trained, dutiful, had done. It's called moral injury, he said quietly. She looked at him sharply. That's not in the sniper school manuals. I've been reading, he admitted. The military's been studying it, especially at extreme ranges. The more distance, the more time you have to think, to watch, to decide, and sometimes regret. Her laugh was bitter. So what's the cure? Another medal, another mission, another file buried under classified so nobody ever asks. He didn't answer because he knew the truth. He had seen it in Wilson's eyes. Mitchell turned back to the mountains. We tell ourselves it's math, right? One life for many. Pull the trigger, save a convoy. Kill the bomb maker, save the village. But when you're the one holding the rifle, she swallowed, the math feels less clean. Leaned on the railing, watching the same horizon. Someone once told me the best snipers aren't the ones who can make the hardest shots. They're the ones who know which shots should never be taken. Her head snapped toward him. Who told you that? Hesitated, someone who knows. Her eyes searched his face. You're talking about the ghost. The words hung like smoke in the night air. She had said it out loud. Didn't deny it. What do you know about projects? He asked carefully. Her silence was heavy. Finally, she said, I was approached 3 weeks ago, a civilian contractor. Hayes. He said my skills were being wasted, offered me something bigger, called it an opportunity to make a real difference. Felt the chill of recognition. Hayes, the man from the archives, the eyes that had lingered too long on his research. He knew details, Mitchell continued. Wind speeds, heart rates, data that wasn't in my reports. He said I had what they were looking for, that I was on a path very few could walk. You didn't accept, said. No, not yet, but since then, her voice dropped. Every mission been longer, harder, pushing me further out, like I'm being tested. Thought of the notebook in his pocket, the coordinates Wilson had warned him about. Their last mission's ridge had been on it. She had known, and now he knew why. They're circling you, he said. Her gaze hardened. Maybe that's where I belong. Maybe this is what I'm made for. He turned to face her fully. Or maybe it's what breaks you. Her eyes flinched at that, just slightly, but enough. The sound of a helicopter approached, distant, pulling both their gazes skyward. But the silence between them was louder. The next morning, carried the notebook into the comms center. He laid it beside a map of their area of operations, cross-checking Wilson's coordinates against Task Force Sierra's mission logs. The pattern was undeniable. Every recent mission site was marked. She wasn't warning him of possibilities. She was warning him of inevitabilities. Major Roberts appeared again, as if summoned by secrets. You like digging, he remarked, stepping close enough to see the open map. Snapped the notebook shut. Just reviewing operational patterns, sir. Roberts' eyes lingered, cold, curious. Patterns can be dangerous. Start seeing connections where none exist, you can lose your way. Forced a steady tone. And sometimes patterns tell you what the official reports don't. Roberts smiled faintly. Careful, Lieutenant. Some of us make careers out of ignoring patterns. Safer that way. He walked off, leaving the warning hanging. That night dreamed of Wilson. Not the janitor, not the woman pushing a cart, the sniper. He saw her in the Hindu Kush 2005. Prone for 72 hours, rifle steady, wind scrawled in her notes. He saw step into her crosshairs. He saw her finger squeeze, the impossible shot. But then he saw what came after. Not commanders, not soldiers, families, children rushing to the body, screams carrying across the valley. The bullet had been perfect, but the aftermath had been anything but. He woke with sweat on his skin, and her voice echoing in his mind. This was my last shot. Their next mission came fast. Another target, another valley, another Overwatch assignment that pushed limits. Captain Walker gave the orders. Calm, professional, but barely heard him. He was watching Mitchell. She nodded crisply, eyes sharp, too sharp. Hunger and exhaustion mingled there. Wilson's warning burned in his chest. She needs to understand what she's walking into as much as you do. As the team dispersed, pulled Mitchell aside. "Check something before we move," he said, slipping her the notebook. She frowned, opening it. Coordinates handwritten, old. She glanced up. "Where did you get this?" "From someone who's already walked the path they want for you." Her expression hardened. "The ghost." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. She stared at the pages, then back at him. Suspicion, curiosity, maybe even fear flickered across her face. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked. "Because you're being tested, and if you don't see it, they'll own you before you realize it." Her jaw set. "And what if I want to be owned? What if this is who I am?" Swallowed, her defiance wasn't arrogance. It was desperation. She needed the war to give her meaning, the rifle to define her worth. He had seen it before, and he had seen where it ended. He lowered his voice. "Then ask yourself one question, Sarah. When the shot comes, will it be yours or theirs?" For a moment the mask cracked. Just a moment. And then she closed the notebook, shoved it back into his hands, and walked away. Stood alone, the sound of her boots fading into the desert night. And he wondered, had Wilson felt the same with him, trying to save someone who might not want saving? The war moved forward, missions stacked, coordinates blurred, the notebook grew heavier. And realized something Wilson had never said out loud. It wasn't just about knowing which shots to take. It was about knowing when to refuse. Why was she smiling when she should have been afraid? Noticed it on the hello ride out, Mitchell's faint grin as she checked her rifle one last time. Not arrogance, not joy, something sharper, hunger. The mission brief had been thin, too thin. A high-value facilitator moving through a valley network, details redacted. Command only wanted results. They were pushing her further out, 2,200 meters this time, a shot already bordering on legend. Sat across from her, helmet tilted, silver dollar pressed tight in his palm. He wanted to tell her the truth about Wilson, about Sandstorm, about what these distances meant. But her eyes burned too bright, fixed on the horizon. Nothing he said would land. Not yet. The helicopter dipped, skid scraping the dirt. Dust storm. Engines roared, then cut. The team spilled into the mountains. Hours later, prone in the overwatch position, set his scope on the compound below. The air shimmered with mirage. Crosswinds tangled in the valley. 200 meters, Monroe, their spotter, confirmed. Wind variable 12 to 14 knots. Temp drop expected by dusk. Mitchell breath steady, rifle anchored into stone. Checked the notebook Wilson had given him. His chest tightened. The coordinates matched again. Target vehicle approaching, Monroe said. Through the scope, crested the dirt track. 5 men. The one in the middle wore civilian clothes, older, with a satchel at his side. "Positive ID?" asked. "Intel says facilitator. Name redacted. Clearance level not provided." Frowned. "That's not a confirmation. That's guesswork." Mitchell didn't blink. "Target in range." She adjusted, breath slow, finger poised. Gut twisted. Wilson's words echoed. "Some shots aren't meant to be taken." "Hold," he whispered. Mitchell's jaw tightened. "This is clean, one shot, no collateral." "You don't know that," said. "Intel's vague, no eyes on, this isn't confirmed." Her finger curved. Every mission's vague. You want absolute clarity, you'll never fire. Leaned close, his voice cut like glass. Then maybe sometimes you shouldn't. Her eyes flicked toward him, sharp, defiant, then back through the scope. Command wants the shot, Monroe said quietly. The silence stretched, the valley wind hissed. Finally Mitchell exhaled, sending. The rifle cracked. The bullet screamed across nearly 1.5 miles of shifting air. Through the scope watched the man collapse, instant, perfect, surgical. But then the satchel tumbled open. Books spilled into the dirt, not blueprints, not bomb schematics, texts, children's notebooks, pages torn from a school. Throat went dry. Mitchell's eyes widened, just for a second. Then she pulled away, face blank. "Target down," she said into comms. Her voice was steel, but her hands trembled as she reloaded. Back at the fob, command cheered. Another facilitator eliminated. Another report filed. But Mitchell didn't celebrate. She sat in the barracks, cleaning her rifle long after it gleamed, over and over, as if scrubbing something deeper than carbon. Approached quiet, careful. "You saw the books," he said. Her jaw tightened. "Collateral." "That wasn't collateral. That was the target. Wrong ID. Wrong intel. We just—" "Stop," she snapped, louder than she meant. Her hand gripped the barrel, knuckles white. Softened his voice. "This is exactly what they did to Wilson. They'll keep feeding you targets until you stop asking questions." Her eyes blazed. "And what's the alternative? Refuse. Disobey. You think that ends with medals. It ends with disgrace. Court-martial, my career gone, my name erased." He leaned closer. "Maybe that's better than erasing yourself." Her breath hitched, just slightly. She looked away, back to the weapon in her lap. "I can handle it," she whispered, but her voice betrayed her. 2 days later, was summoned to Colonel Blackwood's office. The older man stood behind his desk, hands clasped, gaze heavy. "I read your after-action report. Care to explain why you hesitated on Mitchell's shot?" Stiffened. "Intel wasn't clear, sir. It didn't feel right." Blackwood studied him. "You're not wrong, but you're not right either. The machine doesn't slow down for feelings. It grinds forward, it always has." Bristled. "So we just accept bad intel, sacrifice innocence to keep the machine fed." Blackwood's eyes hardened. "Don't pretend you're the first to wrestle with this. Every generation has its ghosts. The question is whether you learn to carry them or let them bury you." He stepped closer, lowered his voice. "Mitchell is strong, but she's on the edge. If you can't keep her steady, she'll fall. And when she falls, they'll send you to replace her. That's how this works." Chest tightened. The silver dollar cut into his palm. "Sir," he said quietly, "what if I don't want to replace her? What if I want to stop the machine?" Blackwood's silence was answer enough. That night found Mitchell again on the deck, the same haunted horizon stretching before her. "They're grooming you," he said. She didn't turn. "And you?" "Same." A bitter laugh. "Then maybe we deserve each other." "Or maybe we deserve better," he said. Finally she faced him. Her eyes glistened under the cold starlight. "I don't know how much longer I can do this. Every time I close my eyes I see them, not the targets, the things they left behind. A satchel, a toy, a face that didn't understand what was happening." Nodded slowly. "That's the beginning, what Wilson felt, that's what broke her." Mitchell's voice cracked. "Then maybe breaking is the only honest thing left." He reached out, hand on her shoulder. "Or maybe honesty is refusing the shot before it breaks you." She searched his face, desperate for something solid. For a moment he thought she might believe him. Then her gaze hardened again. "And if refusal isn't an option?" Had no answer. 2 days later orders came. Another mission, longer range, riskier conditions. Mitchell again was assigned primary as her spotter. The valley coordinates were already written in Wilson's notebook. And knew this wasn't just another mission. This was the test. The night before insertion, he sat alone with the notebook. Wilson's handwriting, the ghosts of her choices, her warnings. Don't let them turn you into me. He closed his eyes, the silver dollar pressed to his forehead. The weight of 2 lives now rested on his shoulders, Mitchell's future and his own. Tomorrow, command would demand a shot that might push her past the point of no return. And he would have to decide, not just whether the target deserved to die, but whether Sarah Mitchell deserved to live with it. Why did the air feel heavier than the rifle? They were prone again, stone biting into elbows, dust searing throats. The ridge stretched like a knife over the valley. Below, the target compound simmered in the noon haze. Range 2,400 meters, Monroe confirmed, glass pressed to his scope. Wind at surface 10 to 12 knots, upper valley currents variable, mirage distortion heavy. Adjusted his scope, breath steady but heart unrelenting. This was past the edge of doctrine, past comfort, past safety. And it wasn't just the shot, it was the coordinates. He had checked twice before leaving. Wilson had written them years ago in her notebook, the same hand that had scrawled warnings across the margins. Some missions aren't meant to be survived. Beside him, Mitchell anchored her AXMC into the earth. Her breathing was calm, too calm. Her finger rested on the trigger like a promise. Target emerging, Monroe said. Through the scope saw them, 3 men stepping into the courtyard. One tall, robes. A figure command had labeled Al, financier of cross-border attacks. Intel said his elimination would cripple networks across the region. But gut twisted, something was wrong. The man didn't move like a commander. He moved like a teacher, correcting, gesturing to the 2 boys beside him. Boys, 17 at most, carrying satchels. Positive ID, Monroe said flatly. Target confirmed. Swallowed hard, the confirmation felt scripted, too quick. Wind shifting, Sarah, he said softly. Hold for a tick. Her eye never left the scope. I've got it. Check the secondaries, he urged. 2 kids unarmed, this isn't clean. Her jaw tightened. Collateral happens. Pulse spiked. That's not collateral, that's the mission being wrong. Monroe's voice cut in, professional, detached. Command says green light. Send it, Sergeant. Leaned close, whisper sharp. Sarah, look again, really look. For the first time her breath hitched, just slightly. Her eye lingered on the boys. He saw her hands tremble. But then she steadied. If we hesitate, he's gone. We don't get second chances at this range. Chest burned. He saw Wilson in her. Lying on stone in 2005. The impossible shot. The families rushing in after. The weight that had crushed her until she became a ghost. Not again. Not her. Sarah, don't, he whispered. She squeezed. Hand shot forward. He pressed down hard, forcing her barrel off target at the split second the trigger broke. The rifle roared. The bullet screamed into empty hillside, shattering stone. Misfire, Monroe barked. Mitchell ripped her eye from the scope, fury igniting. What the hell are you doing? Voice cracked, saving you. Before she could retort, radios erupted. Command demanding status. Monroe scrambling for cover. The compound below stirred, men rushing, scanning the ridges. Compromised, Monroe cursed. We're burned now. Gunfire rattled from below. Tracers snapped the ridge. The team crawled, then sprinted, scrambling down shale as rounds shattered rock around them. By the time they lifted them out, the valley was alive with muzzle flashes and unanswered questions. Back at the fob, the storm broke. Captain Walker slammed against the briefing table. You compromised the mission. You disobeyed direct command. Forced himself steady. The target wasn't clear. The intel was wrong. We would killed civilians. Your job isn't to interpret intel, Walker barked. Your job is to execute it. Mitchell stood in the corner, silent, pale. Her rifle sat disassembled at her feet, as if even she didn't know whether to rebuild it or bury it. Major Roberts entered then, calm as winter. His eyes swept the room, landing on. "Walk with me," he said. The corridor was silent, lit only by flickering fluorescents. Roberts walked slow, hands clasped behind his back. "You think you saved her," he said finally. "That what you did was noble." Clenched his jaw. "I stopped her from becoming another Wilson." Roberts' lips curved faintly. "Ah, so she told you." Froze. Roberts turned, eyes sharp as blades. "Wilson couldn't handle the weight. She broke. We built her and she broke. But Mitchell has steel, and you just interfered." His voice darkened. "Do you know how many operations died in that valley today because you couldn't stomach one trigger pull? Men who will live now to kill others." Voice rose. "And what about the kids in that compound? You think their blood keeps the machine clean?" Robert stepped closer, his breath cold. "This isn't about clean. This is about necessary. Doesn't care about your conscience. It cares about results." Held his stare. "Then maybe's the real enemy." Robert smiled thinly. "Careful, Lieutenant. Ghosts don't live long when they fight the machine." He turned, footsteps echoing, leaving with silence that felt like judgment. That night found Mitchell in the barracks. She sat on her bunk, staring at her hands. They trembled, faint but constant. "You should hate me," he said softly. She looked up, eyes hollow. "I don't." Her voice was a whisper. "I was going to take the shot. I knew it was wrong. I knew those weren't combatants, but I couldn't stop myself. It's like the rifle pulled me, not the other way around." Sat beside her. "That's what they want, to strip you down until the only thing left is obedience." Her eyes brimmed. "Then why did you stop me? Why risk your career, your life for me?" He met her gaze. "Because someone once tried to save me, and I couldn't let you become another ghost." She swallowed hard, her jaw trembling. Then she looked away. "What now?" she whispered. Didn't answer, because he didn't know. 2 days later, Wilson found him. She stepped out of shadow in the motor pool, still in her faded uniform, her disguise barely holding. "You pulled her barrel," she said without preamble. "Froze, you knew." Wilson's eyes softened just slightly. "I know the sound of a shot that isn't fired." He exhaled, the weight of it pouring out. "They'll come for me now. Roberts knows." She nodded. "They always know, but you bought her time. That matters." Searched her face. "What do I do?" Wilson's gaze drifted to the horizon. "The same thing I couldn't. You stand in the machine's path even when it crushes you." She turned to leave, then paused. "Sometimes dignity doesn't speak," she said softly. "It simply acts." And then she was gone, swallowed once more into corridors where ghosts kept their vigil. Stood alone in the motor pool, heart pounding. He had stopped the shot, saved Mitchell from one scar. But the war wasn't over. And he knew now, the next battle wouldn't be against insurgents in the valley. It would be against the machine itself. Why did silence feel more dangerous than gunfire? The hearings began 3 days after the valley. A small room, thin walls, a table too clean for war. Sat in his dress uniform, hands folded, the silver dollar pressed hard between his thumb and palm. Across from him sat Colonel Blackwood, Captain Walker, and Major Roberts. Their eyes carried no heat, only calculation. "You disobeyed a direct order," Walker said, voice flat. "You compromised the mission." Jaw tightened. "I prevented an unlawful kill. Intel was vague and the target was not confirmed." Blackwood leaned forward. "Are you a judge now, Lieutenant, or a soldier?" Met his eyes. "A soldier doesn't put a bullet into a man standing with children when the intelligence is a guess." Robert's lips curved faintly. "And yet you'll gladly put bullets into others when it suits you. Don't kid yourself. You're not protecting humanity. You're picking battles with ghosts." Didn't flinch. "Then maybe some ghosts are worth fighting." The silence stretched. Blackwood finally closed the file. We can't court-martial you, not with your record, not with the clean shot at 1,600 meters, but you're compromised." His voice hardened. "One more incident and you'll be finished." Nodded once slow. The hearing was over, but the verdict had already been written, marked, watched, expendable. Mitchell didn't attend the hearing. Found her afterward, sitting by herself near the burn pit, the acrid smoke twisting around her like a cloak. She was hollow-eyed, shoulders hunched, hands clasped so tightly they looked ready to break. "They wanted me to testify," she said without looking at him. "To say you endangered the mission, to say you lost your nerve." His chest tightened, and she looked up, eyes wet. "I told them I couldn't, that you saved me." Sat beside her. "That won't protect me." Her laugh cracked like glass. "It's not about you anymore, don't you see? It's me. I was ready to pull that trigger. I knew it was wrong and I was still going to do it. You saved me from myself." Her voice broke, "But I can't scrub it out. Every time I close my eyes I see that man in the valley, not because he's dead but because he's alive, because I failed, and I don't know which is worse." Said nothing. He let the silence hold her words because he knew anything he said would be too small. That night, Mitchell broke in a different way. The barracks were dark, snores muffled beneath the hum of generators, woke to a faint metallic click. He turned. Mitchell sat on her bunk, her sidearm in her lap, the magazine half-loaded. His voice cut the dark, steady but soft. "Sarah, put it down." Her head lifted, eyes glistening. "I can't keep carrying them, their faces, their voices. Every shot feels heavier, like I'm burying myself under their weight." Moved slowly, careful not to startle her. "You don't have to carry it alone." Her lips trembled. "Don't you get it? That's what they want. They build us to carry the weight so they don't have to, but it doesn't stop. It never stops." He stepped closer, hand out. "Give me the weapon." She stared at him. A long, trembling silence. Then she slid the pistol into his hand and crumpled forward, sobs breaking from her chest. Held her until the night finally swallowed the sound. The next day, Roberts intercepted him in the corridor. His eyes flicked briefly toward Mitchell, then back. "She's cracking," Roberts said. "No malice, just assessment. I warned them she wasn't ready." Stiffened. "You warned them. You pushed her, you tested her." Roberts smiled thinly. "Do you know why Wilson broke? It wasn't the shot. It was the silence after, the refusal of the world to care. Soldiers die, civilians die, wars churn. She expected someone to bear witness. No one did, that's why she's a ghost." Fists clenched, and Mitchell. "She'll either harden," Roberts said coolly, "or she'll join Wilson in the shadows. That's the price of the long shot." Stepped closer. "Not if I stop it." Roberts' eyes narrowed. "Then you'd better hope you're stronger than she was." That evening sought Wilson. He found her in the chapel, sitting alone in the back row, hands folded as if in prayer. The light through the dusty window framed her face, weary and resolute. "You knew this would happen," said quietly, sliding into the pew beside her. She didn't look at him. "Of course, the pattern repeats, it always does." He clenched his jaw. "How do we break it?" Finally she turned. Her eyes carried years of silence, pain carved into every line. "You can't break the machine, but you can break its rhythm. Refuse when they demand. Speak when they order silence. Protect the ones who can't protect themselves." She touched his hand, the faintest tremor in her fingers. "But it will cost you. The machine punishes those who step out of line. You need to be ready." Held her gaze. "I'm already paying." She nodded slowly. "Then maybe you have a chance." The next mission came faster than expected. No briefing this time, just sealed orders. The team gathered at the pad, gears strapped, rifles checked. The rotors thumped like a heartbeat. Mitchell stood apart, helmet in hand, eyes far away. She looked at when he approached, not defiant, not hungry, just tired. "If they push me again," she said quietly, "I don't know if I can stop." Put a hand on her shoulder. Then I'll stop you." She searched his face as if trying to believe him. Then she nodded, silent, and climbed aboard the helo. Followed, the silver dollar burning in his palm. The mission would not be another valley. It would be deeper, riskier, one final test. And knew whatever waited for them out there would decide not just Mitchell's fate, but his own. Because this time, it wouldn't be about the shot. It would be about who had the will to refuse it. Why was the helicopter flying lower than usual? The team felt it, the unusual dip, the way the pilot skimmed masking their noise in the wind. Gut told him this wasn't just insertion, it was concealment. They hit the LZ hard, dust exploded, rotors cut away. Silence fell, the kind that makes every breath too loud. Captain Walker unfolded the orders on site. His voice was clipped, controlled. Target convoy expected in 30 minutes. Location, he pointed at the ridge across the valley. Range, 2,800 meters. Froze, his chest tightened. That number, almost exactly what Wilson had inscribed, 2,875 meters. Mitchell's eyes flicked to him. She didn't say it, but he saw it. She recognized it too. "This is the shot," Walker said. "No room for error. Command wants proof the program works." Proof, not necessity, not lives saved. A demonstration. Blood chilled. This wasn't war. This was theater. They took position on the ridge. The world stretched endless in the scope, heat, dust, faint mirage waves rising from stone. Monroe called wind. Mitchell adjusted. Her movements were steady, almost mechanical now. Lay beside her, watching through his glass. The convoy emerged, crawling like ants across the valley floor. Technicals in the middle. "Target vehicle identified," Monroe said. "Confirmation." Static crackled in earpiece. A voice he didn't know. Cold, bureaucratic. "Command confirms fire on green." Scan the no insignia. No weapons visible, just figures, too far to read, too far to know. Mitchell's finger found the trigger. "Hold," said softly. She didn't answer. Her breath slowed, her world narrowing to a crosshair and a heartbeat. "Sarah, look again. You don't know who's in that truck." Her eye didn't move. "It doesn't matter." "Yes, it does," he hissed. "That's what they want, blind obedience. This is proof, not justice." Her voice cracked. "If I don't take it, they'll say I'm broken. They'll end me." Pressed closer, his whisper sharp as a blade. "If you take it, you'll end yourself." The silence was unbearable. Mirage shimmered. The convoy rolled. Time evaporated. "Green light," the voice in comms barked. "Fire, Sergeant." Her finger tightened. "Acted." His hand clamped the barrel, forcing it skyward. The rifle cracked. The round screamed into open air, a kilometer wide of its mark. The radio erupted, shouts, fury. "Shot missed, confirm misfire." Mitchell ripped her eye from the scope, face contorted with rage and anguish. Why did you stop me again?" Chest heaved. "Because this isn't war, this is sacrifice, and they're sacrificing you." Bullets snapped into the ridge before she could answer. The convoy had spotted them. Rounds shattered stone. Dust erupted. "Compromised," Monroe shouted. "Move." The team scrambled, grabbed Mitchell's arm, dragging her as tracers stitched the earth. They tumbled down shale, hearts hammering, every breath a prayer. By the time the extraction bird clawed them out, the ridge was lit with fire. Back at the fob, the machine showed its teeth. Walker's fury, Robert's silence, Blackwood's disappointment was stripped of operational duties pending review. Mitchell was sequestered, her weapon confiscated. But didn't care. He had stopped the shot twice. That night he found her outside the wire, staring at the horizon. "You should hate me," he said quietly. She shook her head. I hate myself, because part of me wanted to take it, not for the mission, not even for command, for me, to prove I could." Her eyes brimmed. "And you stopped me twice. You carried weight I couldn't." He stepped closer. "No, I just refused to let the machine turn you into another ghost." Silence hung, then she whispered, "What happens now?" Looked at the stars, the same sky Wilson had once watched. "We live with it, we carry it, but we carry it together." Days later, Wilson found him one last time. She stepped from the shadows in the motor pool, her face lined, her eyes softer than he'd ever seen. "You stopped it," she said. Nodded for now. Her gaze lingered on him, then shifted toward the horizon. "You'll still pay. They always punish defiance." "I know," he said. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, worn, a bullet casing. She pressed it into his palm. "My last shot," she whispered. "Keep it, not as legend, as warning." He closed his fingers around it, feeling the cool brass bite. When he looked up, she was gone. Weeks later, the machine moved on. Missions shifted, files closed, was buried deeper. And Mitchell shipped home. Their names not disgraced, not praised, just forgotten. But in the quiet of civilian life, when the world moved indifferent and unscarred, they would meet sometimes. In diners, on park benches. No uniforms, no ranks. Just two people carrying the same weight. They didn't speak of the valley, or the truck, or the shot that never was. They spoke of small things, ordinary things, the kind of things you hold onto when the extraordinary tries to consume you. And sometimes in the pauses, Sarah would whisper, "You saved me," and would answer, "No, you saved yourself. I just gave you the chance." The story never made reports. It never reached history books. The machine buried it as it always did. But somewhere in the silence between wars, it lived on, not as legend, not as myth, but as choice. Because sometimes, the bravest act isn't pulling the trigger. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.